Hello everyone, amateur meteorologist. First weather here, it is September 12th, 2020, and we have another named system that is going to be impacting the southeast Gulf of Mexico. And this is the official 8 p.m. advisory for Tropical Storm Sally. As you can see, it is located in this region right here. Pretty small wind field extent, but that is expected to change quite quickly. And as you can see, it has maximum sustained winds at 40 miles per hour. And it is moving west-northwest at about 8 miles per hour. And as you can see already for southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and also southwestern Alabama, you already do have hurricane watches and also tropical storm watches in effect for the Panhandle region of Florida. And as you can see, the NOAA track takes this as a storm and intensifies it into a hurricane shortly before making landfall, and then it quickly loses strength and generally starts to drift in a northeasterly direction. As you can see, this is a very slow-moving system according to this track. You can see that it takes from 2 p.m. Monday to 2 p.m. Tuesday, it barely moves about 100 miles. And so that's why with this system, the highest threat will be flash flooding and flooding in general, as we see a certain area get dumped on with heavy rain for many hours at a time. So that is the biggest risk with the system, not necessarily the winds. The winds, of course, are dangerous, but with this system, the threat from very damaging flooding is certainly very high. And if we now switch to the satellite view, you can see nothing really too great right now. It doesn't look too organized. The storm is almost naked right here. You can see the circulation somewhere right here, but this is definitely going to change as it enters an environment that is very conducive for intensification, which I'll get into later in the video. But you can see you do have one good convective cell, one good convective area right here, some nice whites and pinks indicating that we are seeing some pretty good thunderstorms. And this trend should continue. I think by tomorrow we will see a more organized system and some more organized structure, but right now it does not look that impressive. You can see that we do have some, a little bit of wind shear right here, but we do have some outflow now forming, which does indicate that some storms are collapsing, which further goes to show that the system is not quite strong and organized yet, but that again, of course, will change in the next 24 hours or so. Now here is the latest 0Z hurricane model plots, and you can see that with the hurricane models there actually is still quite a bit of variability. You have the westernmost point being landfall in southwestern Louisiana right here, all the way to the southwestern portion of Alabama, and then you have a couple outliers right here. So I think the consensus is that landfall will be somewhere in this region right here. Where exactly, we do not know yet. This particular run is showing most of the models being clustered in the Mississippi area, but that of course might shift by 50 miles to the west or east. Now here is the strength projection. You can see most of the models do intensify this into a strong tropical system, and a couple do take this into hurricane strength. And I think this trend will only increase with more models taking this into Cat 1, maybe potentially even Cat 2 category strength as we get closer and closer to the system, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. Now here is the Gfs Ensemble Gefs model, and this is the sort of the ensemble members pressure, and you can see that this is 18Z Tuesday, September 15th. So of course this thing is going to expect it to make landfall sometime Tuesday afternoon, and you can see that a wide majority of the models are clustered in this region right here. So the Gfs Ensemble is indicating a landfall in southeastern Louisiana, if not southern Mississippi. And if we switch to the European, which I think right here, if we switch to the European, you can see it's showing pretty much the same exact thing with that little circle right here indicating where it believes that system will be. And of course you can see that it thinks that the system will be a little bit further to the east in southern Mississippi, but in general in agreement with the Gfs model. So I think there's very good consensus that this system will make landfall somewhere in southeastern Louisiana or southern Mississippi. I think it's very unlikely that Alabama sees a direct landfall, but most likely these two states right here probably are right along the border region. And keep in mind, southwestern Louisiana was just hit about a week or 2 weeks ago, and now the eastern part of the state is getting the full brunt of a tropical system. So very unlucky weather that we're seeing for this region of the United States. And keep in mind, we also have the wildfires in the west and the flooding going on in other portions of the nation. So again, very active season we're having right now, and the tropics just are not helping at all. Now, if we switch to the GFS Ensemble 250 millibar wind stream lines, and you can see this is for Tuesday 0Z September 15th. So this is just about a few hours before it makes landfall, and as you can see, there's almost no shear present. The polar jet stream, as it should be this time of year, is well to the north, so any wind shear from that is quite low. And you do have a small trough right here, but it's too far to the west to really have any influence over this system right here. And according to the Gfs model, this system will have a pretty potent anticyclonic high in the upper levels. Of course, since you have rising air in the lower levels, you're going to have sinking air and high pressure system at the upper levels. And that should help to push away some of that wind shear that might try to encroach in with this little jet streak right here from that trough. And so I think if this does verify, you're going to have some very low wind shear values, which will really help to inhibit any weakening or stagnation with this system. And I think this could definitely help to keep the system or maintain the system's strength, and most likely intensify it between now and landfall on Tuesday. And now here is the GFS 700 to 400 millibar relative humidity, and as you can see, there's almost no real source of dry air or concern of dry air being sucked into the system. There's not really any area that should really hamper the system. You can see this is for 18Z Monday, and you can clearly this system is well maintained. It has nice moisture flows coming in from both sides of the system. No real concern for any dry air being sucked in. There's this little pocket right here, but of course this is not really significant at all. So it does look like this system will not have a dry air threat. You can see a pretty potent cold front coming through during this time, and this is September 14th, but of course this cold front is a bit too far to the north for it to really have any impact on the system. And with Sally pulling in air from basically this region right here and also this region, you're not really having any significant dry air sources, which could help to hamper its development. So that's another thing that is favoring this system to strengthen quite quickly. And finally, if we look at the sea surface temperatures, you can see right around where it's going to intensify and go through, we can see we have temperatures about 29-30 degrees Celsius, which is quite warm. The Gulf temperatures are still anonymously above average. And so this is another factor which will help to intensify this system. And that just shows you have low wind shear, you have limited availability of dry air, so the system will not be damaged with any dry air being basically sucked into the system, and you have very good sea surface temperature anomalies, and you have good sea surface temperatures. So all three check marks are in place for this system to intensify, and some of the hurricane models are picking up on that with the latest Herf model showing a potent Category 2, maybe even weak Category 3 storm before making landfall. Of course, we don't know if that's going to verify, but I think it does show that there is significant potential for this system to really intensify quickly in a short matter of time. Now, if we look at the Windshear Map, this is the current Windshear Map. This is where Sally is currently right now, just to the west of Florida. And you can see all these greens right here. That is very low wind shear. We have wind shear 5 to 20 knots at most. And you can see it's going to be going right through that region over the next couple of days. And so that is very good for strengthening. And unfortunately, that looks like this system will really have an ideal environment for strengthening as it continues its northwesterly track, low wind shear, good sea surface temperatures, and also no dry air in its vicinity. So I really do think the system has quite the potential to intensify rather quickly. Now here is the Herf model. You can see this is valid for 6Z Tuesday, so it is a little bit fast, but I just want you to get the point that it has its pressure at 960 millibars right before landfall. That is a strong Category 2, if not very weak Category 1 hurricane. And of course, the numbers don't really make a difference, but this just goes to show that the Herf model, which actually nailed the last system, many people do give this model flack for over-intensifying systems and really sort of being eye candy for hurricane systems and tropical systems in general, but it has been very accurate for the past few systems. And I think it is I actually agree with what the Herf is saying right now. The conditions are in place for rapid intensification, low wind shear again, no dry air, and also warm sea surface temperatures. So I don't think this is just the model exaggerating. I think this is a very legit and valid possibility for the system to intensify quite quickly before it makes landfall. Now here is the Gfs Ensemble. This is for total precipitation. This is valid for 0Z Friday. And like I said earlier in the video, this system is projected to move very slowly. There's not going to be any steering currents in the Gulf of Mexico, which will also help to provide that very low wind shear. And because of that lack of any steering currents, this system will move at a snail's pace. And I think, as illustrated by the GFS model right here, you do have the potential, a pocket of potentially 5, 10, maybe even more inches of rain, about 25 to 50 miles inland in southeastern Louisiana and also southern Mississippi. And this is illustrated quite well on the National Weather Service's forecasted precipitation plot. This is day 1 to 5 rainfall. You can see these reds right here, which extend about 25 miles inland for Louisiana, Mississippi, and even Alabama. That's 10 to 15 inches of rain. And then in some of these islands right here, could see 15 to 20 inches of rain in spots. And then this orange is also not something to mess around with, 6 to 10 inches of rain. And keep in mind, some of these areas have been getting pounded by rain, not to mention the heavy rain that also came from Isaias, or not Isaias, but rather the last system. I can't remember the name right now. But this region overall is very saturated. And with these very heavy rainfalls that are coming with the slow-moving system, I think we have the potential for a very threatening and very damaging system for the Gulf of Mexico, particularly southeastern Louisiana and southern Mississippi and southwestern Alabama. So I think if you are in this region right here, let me draw it out quite quickly. If you are in this area, I think now is the time to start being prepared, making your plans, because this system is going to be packing a punch. All the factors are in place and the signals are in place for some pretty quick, rapid intensification. And with that slow-moving system and that heavy rain, I think we really could be seeing lots of damage and life-threatening conditions for a large area of the Gulf of Mexico. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you understood that this is a pretty serious system. It was looking like this would just be a weak tropical storm, but it is now that thought process is now changing. Everything is sort of lining up for this to intensify rather quickly. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.